Hi there. I wanted to share the very positive experience we have had with Lucy Nathanson and her effective treatment of our daughter's selective mutism, in particular through an intensive course of therapy at our daughter's school. Our daughter had been attending her playgroup for over a year when she began to withdraw and stop speaking in that setting. She was 3.5 at the time. She also stopped speaking to close members of my family and, for a period, everyone she encountered outside our immediate family. I began to research her symptoms and first encountered the phrase selective mutism. We initially engaged a speech and language therapist to see our daughter once a week, which helped marginally with her confidence, but did not begin to address her inability to speak at playgroup or elsewhere. I found the lack of understanding and expertise in treating selective mutism among the professionals that I spoke to frustrating, and it was difficult to accept that there wasn't more that we could do to help our daughter, who had until then been a happy, confident and chatty child. She started a new school last September, going into a small pre-reception class of 8. Although this was a huge transition for her, the school had experience of selective mutism, and they were hugely supportive of our daughter. The school put in place several practices to try to help her alleviate our daughter's anxiety and encouraged me to spend time with her at school to help her feel secure. Although our daughter grew in confidence over the first term and was happy at school, she was still not able to speak in school and in certain other situations, so the school gave us Lucy's details and we contacted her, recognising that we needed specialist help to help our daughter make further progress. Lucy came for a home visit early in December 2016. Although I'd read about the sliding in technique before that, it was only when I observed Lucy putting it into action that I really understood how and why it worked. It was fascinating to watch my daughter's reactions to Lucy gradually joining us while we played. Observing Lucy avoiding eye contact and her careful sense of when my daughter felt comfortable enough for her to move closer was so helpful, and it was the beginning of an amazing journey. My daughter spoke directly to Lucy on that first home visit and was very keen for Lucy to come back for another play date soon. On that occasion, Lucy gave us lots of helpful and practical steps that friends could take to alleviate the pressure and anxiety that our daughter felt in various social situations. These worked a treat as we stayed with 3 different families over Christmas and our daughter chatted happily with everybody. But she was still unable to speak at school or to anyone that she associated with both her and her brother's schools. Lucy therefore recommended a week's intensive therapy with her at school, which took place at the end of January 2017. Lucy came for another home visit just beforehand to make sure our daughter was comfortable talking to her. The main areas of focus during the week that Lucy spent with our daughter at school were assisting our daughter to speak to her teachers, helping her speak to her peers, and helping her speak in different locations around the school. Although I'd spent time with my daughter at school each day to help her feel comfortable enough to talk to me in the school setting, I hadn't appreciated what a key part I had to play during the week of intensive therapy. But it quickly became obvious why I was needed. I had to engage my daughter in games which involved her speaking to me, while Lucy carefully directed either a teacher or another pupil in the sliding in technique. It was extraordinary how effective this was, and my daughter made huge steps forward each day. Each time she reached a new goal, Lucy was there to help her move forward again. Lucy was 100% focused on my daughter throughout the time she was in school with her. She was constantly thinking of ideas and ways to help break down her anxiety. And she worked tirelessly and wasn't afraid to tell the teaching staff exactly what they needed to do. Lucy was inclusive in her approach and welcomed my and the teachers' input and suggestions. My daughter was only at school during the mornings, but every afternoon and evening Lucy was in touch, suggesting practical steps that I could take, helping to evaluate my daughter's reactions and giving advice about what to say to her about the process. By the end of the week, my daughter was able to speak to me and Lucy using her normal voice in very close proximity to 3 of her teachers and to her peers. Being a part of that process was very rewarding. I felt a sense of relief and joy to see my daughter making such huge progress, but I also felt empowered to help her in the days and weeks following the intensive week we had with Lucy. Spending that time with my daughter and Lucy profoundly deepened my understanding of selective mutism and how it had impacted my daughter, and that helped overcome the feelings of despair and frustration and helplessness that I had felt watching my daughter unable to be herself. The week was also hugely beneficial for the teachers involved. Many knew about the sliding in technique, but it's very difficult to explain what to do in abstract. So Lucy's guidance and instruction with the teachers, and of course with the pupils who were only 3 and 4 at the time, was invaluable, both during the week but also afterwards when the teachers and I carried on putting the techniques into practice. Indeed, during the 2 weeks after our intensive week with Lucy, my daughter managed to speak directly to the 3 teachers we'd worked with. There were 3 incredible moments, and I know my daughter would not have achieved that without Lucy's input, certainly not as quickly. It was definitely a financial investment, but the progress our daughter made during the intensive week and afterwards was priceless. I did feel a slight sense of dread as the week came to an end about how I would manage without Lucy, but I booked a handful of follow-up sessions with her at school, which I found really helpful, particularly so that she could introduce the techniques to more teaching staff. My daughter definitely found it harder to communicate with her peer group rather than her teachers, but I'm delighted to say that almost 6 months to the day since we first met Lucy, my daughter began to speak to her peers one by one just over a couple of weeks, and that led quickly to her being able to speak to her brother's friends and their parents, to whom she hadn't been able to speak for about 18 months. We'll always be indebted to Lucy, whose practical approach to breaking down anxiety has helped our daughter to be able to be herself again at school. The techniques are simple, but sometimes they're counterintuitive, and you definitely need a lot of patience. But there's no doubt in my mind that without Lucy's intervention, our daughter's anxieties and inability to speak at school would have become more entrenched. So we're eternally grateful to Lucy and can't recommend the week's intensive therapy highly enough.